Good afternoon. It's now 1 o'clock in Nairobi, Kenya. This is KTN's Newsdesk. Let's take a look at the top stories we have for you this afternoon. UN Security Council warns Salva Kiir and Riek Machar against breaking South Sudan peace deal. No more compensation for 2008 IDPs, government declares. And the county health crisis. What is the medical board doing about the union strikes? I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. We have all those stories for you, including an interview with the CEO of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board. We'll be focusing on the health crisis in Kenya that has now hit 8 counties at this moment. Welcome to the program. Let's start off with our top stories of the day. President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar this morning called for a ceasefire from either side of their troops in a war that has torn the nation apart. The ceasefire comes just hours after the United Nations Security Council warned that both sides must uphold the terms of the deal if South Sudan is to remain peaceful. Timothy Otieno reports.
That this agreement is the first step in reversing the difficult political and economic situation and humanitarian and security catastrophe resulting from this crisis, calls upon the parties with support from the United Nations and international community to fully implement the agreement and reaffirms its unwavering support of the people of South Sudan.
Timothy Otieno is still working on that story. We'll give you the full update once it is in. Let's come back to Kenya now. The government has ruled out any future compensation or allocation of land to victims of the 2008 post-election violence. Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru says the government has already settled all the genuine IDPs and closed the chapter. Waiguru says those still claiming to be internally displaced persons of that violence are not genuine. She was speaking in Nyandarua.
Of integrated IDPs. It's not possible to reopen it because if we open the issue of integrated IDPs who are paid 10,000 and some 25,000, we will have to open it up for over 600,000 Kenyans. I want you to multiply the money that you expect to be paid by 600,000 and you will see it's in excess of 300 billion shillings. Where would you get it? There's a new lot of IDPs coming. I had another lot the other day outside my office they were called Nairobi Integrated something IDPs. The minute you start saying you're paying, you will have over 1 million people coming up. And so the process of even validating becomes very, very difficult 5 years down.
West Pokot County Teachers Executive Secretary has threatened to paralyze operations once schools reopen if the government doesn't honor the Supreme Court's ruling on their pay increment. Executive Secretary Martin Sembello said it was wrong for the government to drag its feet in implementing the pay rise.
Yapo kwamba watoto wangapi katika West Pokot wanaweza kukosa kwenda class serikali wasipotimiza hii hadi. Tunaweza kusema ya kwamba ni over 40,000 children in West Pokot will miss classes, and by the way, about 600 schools will actually closed on that particular thing, and about 300, not 300 but 150 secondary schools in West Pokot will miss classes during that particular time.
And still on the teachers' pay dispute, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers Secretary General Akelo Misori says the state has no option but to pay teachers in accordance with the court ruling. KUPPET has criticized the state for what it calls hiding under the guise that complying with the court award will destabilize the country's economy.
Not spoiling for war, but we are being guided by the rulings of the courts. That given that the courts have given the teachers the 50 and 60%, the government has no option. The only option that the government has is to pay the teachers. Teachers of this country are not going to be subjected to slavery in the name of leaving the government to work in comfort. It is upon government to note that the teachers of these countries are not going to contribute to the development of the nation on the basis of charity, but on the basis of the fact that we are engaged in the process of development. And when you define development, you cannot remove education from that the aspect. And that is the reason for which we are saying that this time round, it is going to be total paralysis of learning in all learning institutions in the land, given the fact that there is lack of good faith.
Let's go to some party politics now. The ODM grassroots elections begin today in Migori County and will proceed to 6 counties in Kenya, while other counties will kick off as planned by the party. The chairman, John Mbadi, has promised a free and fair process.
The date of general election, I think as a party we took a stand as ODM. I am aware that the mover of the bill that is supposed to change the election date from August every 5 years to December is a member of ODM, but he proposed the bill as a private member's bill. It was not a party-sponsored bill. The party took a decision that the elections remain the second Tuesday of August of every 5th year. And so that is not, we are not ambiguous about it. Every member of parliament on ODM a ticket is expected to take a decision that follows the party's resolutions, which we arrived at Manzoni. So that is clear. He will conduct elections in 3 phases, beginning this weekend, Saturday, tomorrow. And there will be 6 counties participating in the elections, or the elections will be conducted in 6 counties. That is Migori, where we are today, Vihiga, Kajiado, Marsabit, Wajir, and of course Kilifi. Next weekend, Nairobi will also conduct election. Therefore, what I would appeal is that members of ODM who want to participate in this election, and I urge all members of ODM to participate in this election to strengthen the party. We'll start the elections right from the polling stations. Every polling station will have 20 youth, 20 women, and of course 20 in the mainstream party. We expect a flawless exercise. The briefs we've got from the National Elections Board, which is tasked with this responsibility, is that everything is in place. I know Commissioner Doyo is already in Migori, Commissioner Pareno is in Kajiado, Commissioner Nancy Abesai is in Vihiga, I know Commissioner Mana is in Kilifi, Commissioner Mutulu is handling Marsabit, and Wajir we have Ellen Katangi. So those commissioners have put all processes in place, and I expect that tomorrow we'll have wonderful party elections. We want to demonstrate to other political parties that exist in paper that ODM is a serious, committed, and practical party in terms of managing its party elections. And this should serve as an indicator of what we expect to see next year when we embark on party primaries.
Let's go to environmental matters now. There has been talk everywhere about the saving of elephants and rhinos from poaching activities. But an equally endangered species of very rare zebras are now raising their heads for attention. Here's a special focus on saving the Grevy zebra.
A larger, longer and narrower head, very large and more rounded ears, sharper stripes and a beautiful straight mane. Look closely. This is not the common zebra but the stunning Grevy zebra, an endangered species which is only found in northern Kenya and some parts of Ethiopia. Conservationists say Kenya loses at least 60 Grevy zebras every year to different threats, including being hunted for their magnificent skin.
We have communities that take them for medicinal purposes, and they believe that once you take, fat, the body fat of a Grevy zebra, you boost your immune system, and also to cure some chronic diseases like TB.
An even bigger threat is the loss of habitat, having to compete with the pastoralist community that lives here for the inadequate pasture. And that is where the work of conservationists like Belinda Loy, who founded the Grevy Zebras Trust with the help of others in 2007, comes in, convincing the community that the future of this beautiful animal lies in their hands by turning those who were once hunters to protectors.
Many Kenyans don't actually know about Grevy zebra and the fact that they have an endangered species in their country, which is bringing income to communities in northern Kenya.
And to achieve this, they have come up with a rehabilitation program to empower the community in conservation by training scouts, ambassadors, women and warriors to help fight the eradication of the Grevy zebras, always considered as an endangered species.
Na hatukulenga wale wasomi kwa sababu walikuwa na ile hofu kwamba hao wasomi nao ni watu ambao wanaweza kuwa ni wanatuchezea, lakini walipoona ni wasee kina mama wale tu wa nyumbani, ndio community wakaanza kubadilisha mawazo na tukaanza kupata support kwao.
The major responsibility of an ambassador is to go to do the monitoring. That is, they go to the field, monitor the Grevies. They collect data, and the data comprise of the social grouping of the animals.
So today they came together to celebrate the progress made in saving the Grevy zebras. Through the work of the Grevy Zebras Scout program, they are slowly spreading the heart of conserving animals to the rest of the Samburu community, making them realize that these animals are an integral part of their lives, the environment and their culture.
Samburu sana hutumia Grevy zebra kwamba ni indicator ya security. Pia inatumika kwa kuwa ina alert watu kwamba kuna danger mahali, ama wanatumia kufuata Grevies kujua mahali kwa maji na lishe bora kwa mifugo yao.
The communities used to poach the Grevy zebra for meat, bushmeat. But at least with the initiative that has been started by the Grevy Zebra Trust, at least the community have started to change, though it's still a challenge that needs to be targeted on.
Conservationists say that as long as we address the key threats to Grevy zebra, then their future remains bright. At the end of the day, this can only work if the community shares the same goal with conservationists, that of protecting and increasing this species so that it can thrive in its natural habitat and subsequently provide both intrinsic and extrinsic value to the communities. The number of Grevy zebras remaining in the whole world is at 2,800, 90% of which are found in Kenya. But even here in the country, these species are now exposed to different threats and are now on the verge of extinction. Fatma Pole, KTN News in Samburu County.
You're watching KTN's Newsdesk, news as it happens. We want to take a short break right now, but here's what's coming up next. Still to come, we focus on the county health crisis and we ask, what is the medical board doing about the union strikes? Welcome back to KTN Newsdesk this Saturday afternoon. We're keeping our eye on what is happening with the health sector in the 8 counties. Health services have been paralyzed across the board there. Complaints over delayed pay and delayed promotions. We want to get in some perspective now from the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board. And the CEO of that, Daniel Yumbia, joins us this afternoon to discuss this. Daniel, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, this discussion coming on the back of your conference that starts next week, we'll get into that. But top on Kenyans' minds today is, the health crisis across 8 counties. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think we've heard from the board regarding the crisis.
The reason why you've not heard from the board is that we are working behind the scenes. We've had discussions with the Kenya Medical Association, and the approach we have as a board is that while we say doctors and healthcare workers must be listened to and their dues must be paid, we are also calling for patience, because there are some logistical issues, particularly the government financial cycle, where you get the budget approvals and the money being transferred to the counties. I think that is something that has been explained. It's a big challenge, and the government did explain that they have already fast-tracked the process, and money should not be an issue now. Each county should be able to pay their health workers. But when it comes to promotions, I think that is something that is between the Public Service Commission and the county service board. I think harmony need to be exercised to ensure that the counties do not discriminate against. A particular county does not give benefits that are not being given to other counties. Right. I think we are looking at situations where we have seen some counties are announcing or advertising varied benefits, and we are calling for harmonization. This has to be done in order that any doctor who is working in County A should be able to access the same benefits with a doctor in Count B.
All right, so harmonization across the county.
Yes, harmonization.
I mean, you mentioned the issue of pay and that is being resolved. However, this is not the first time that doctors, nurses, medical practitioners in general have complained about delayed pay from the counties, and each time the issue of a strike rears its head, we hear of harmonization between the national and the county governments and money being released. In some instances, we've even heard governors saying themselves that even their own pay has not been made. So what can we do to put an end to this crisis?
I think, Yvonne, in the past there was a challenge where we would send interns to the Ministry of Health, and the ministry would say that they don't have allocation, and they would get the interns to delay from reporting to their internship training centers. And what we did with the Ministry of Health was that we did a forecast and gave a prediction and said foreign trained doctors are this number, local doctors, trained doctors are this number, and the ministry did that kind of projection. That is never a challenge as of now. What we are saying is that if for real salaries are being delayed for everybody, doctors will have to listen to the real cause of the delay. But somebody should take responsibility. Why would releasing funds to the counties be an issue when the parliament has passed the budget, the president has assented to the bill, and it's an issue of electronic transfer?
So what has been the role of the board in this crisis? Have you spoken with the national government?
The role of the board, of course, we are in touch with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Health, which coordinates healthcare in the country. We've been in touch with the union and the Kenya Medical Association, and we've told them to give us their issues in isolation, that this is a persistent problem and that one is being addressed. But the much concern that the board has gotten in is where the healthcare workers are asking for health service board. And I think there we stand with them. We feel that just like the Teacher Service Commission addresses issues for teachers.
So a health
it
services board?
is high time we thought of a health service board where all health workers' issues can be addressed. If the government can transfer the money for the health workers to that commission, that can be done. Apparently, this was not included in the Constitution. And I think there is where we failed, all of us, because we were busy forming commissions to oversee other activities, and we forgot or we overlooked the issue of our health. Health is so important that we needed a commission, and if it needs a referendum, so be it. As a board, we support the Health Service Commission because it can really take the burden off the shoulders of the counties and off the shoulders of even the national ministry, and get the health workers addressed and the issues of promotions, transfers, and postings, just like the Teacher Service Commission is doing. What we asked the doctors, why didn't they say this at Bomas? They gave the excuse that they were busy treating even the
Some
people.
would say the same thing of
yes,
the board.
They
but
say,
why didn't the board, under your leadership, say the same thing at Bomas?
No, we let the doctors be represented because we are a health regulatory authority, an agency of the government. We are not a union, and we thought that KMA would articulate this. But in as much as the doctors were saying what they wanted, there were few. And apparently other interested parties' interest came in, and healthcare workers were not given what they deserved. Now there is a health bill, which is in Parliament. Yes. I don't know which stage it is. That is still addressing some of the issues that the healthcare workers want. But the Health Service Commission is a proposal in the health bill. If that can be done, Yvonne, I think the problem and the crisis that we have would come to an end.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment.
Let me finish.
Yes.
The other bit is that in as much as health workers are having challenges, as a board, our appeal is that they should put the patient interest first. Let patients not suffer unnecessarily. If there is something that can be done to help the patients, let the health workers consider.
Okay, all right, and we'll get to devolution in a moment, but because you've mentioned putting the patient first, I think this is something we can talk about, because many of the residents in the various counties who are suffering from the paralysis of services in the health sector say, but doctors took an oath, nurses also took an oath to, look after their patients no matter what, and the fact that they are sort of abandoning their patients, and that is something to worry about.
Yes.
What's the board's position on that?
As a board, we would deal with health practitioners who are brought forth having contributed to the death of a patient. But the human face on this is, if a doctor has not been paid and they have been chased from their house because they have not paid rent, and we are punishing them for not going for work, they have loans to pay. They have children to take to school. Their children have been sent away from school. Would we punish them for not going to report to work, and they've got to negotiate the issue of their children in various schools? So in as much as we are looking at the Hippocratic oath, where doctors have to value life, we also have to look at the human face on it. They still have needs like any other person, and therefore they must be.
All right, Daniel, and what happens to those families who have lost their loved ones as a result of not being tended to during this crisis? What recourse do they have?
I think as a board, we will not take anybody who has lost life during this strike to have been caused by the health worker in person. We will take the responsibility on the institutions, and you look at the role that has been played by various healthcare workers. But we would appeal to healthcare workers to ensure that life is not lost.
But Daniel, you don't see a direct cause and effect between a doctor or a nurse or a health worker not being present. In essence, some would call it negligent to some degree, and a patient losing their lives. Is there no direct cause?
As a board, we are not going to call it negligence until we sit down and hear the case as it's presented. Because as I said, if people have not been paid their salaries and we are telling them go to work, some of them commute. How do they go? That is an issue. But we are calling upon them to exercise care and to put the patient first. If they would do that, I'm sure every situation would be explained. But as a board, we don't want to threaten, to say that we shall do this and that. We would rather investigate and come up with a solution based on what we have found.
So
whoever we find is culpable.
The institution, the government?
Yeah, there is the institution.
The Ministry of Health?
We look at the institution. Patients belong to either a doctor or they belong to an institution. Now, if that institution has failed to exercise care to their patients, simply because their employees have not reported for duty, then we shall find which employee was supposed to be there and what circumstances led to the patient losing their life. And that way we'll investigate and make a determination. But doctors, nurses, clinical officers, lab technologists, pharmacists, all know that the life of a patient is dependent on what kind of care they offer. And we will just plead with them. Plead. The word is pleading. I'm not directing. I'm not threatening. Plead with them at this time, these difficult times, to look into the interest of the patient. That is what the board would say. Look into the interest of the patient with a soft heart, and then ensure this situation is contained. And the governors, the county governments, and whoever is responsible for the pay must take responsibility. Ensure people, healthcare workers, are paid effectively. I mean, I don't understand why there is delay in January, delay in February, and delay in March.
Right. So
yes.
some of these issues that you have been
They
raising,
should not
and
recur.
perhaps
They should not
some
recur.
of those solutions. Okay, we'll get to your conference in just a moment. That takes place next week. That's the 1st to the 4th of September. We're speaking with Daniel Yumbia, who's the CEO of the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Board, on the health crisis. That's it for KTN Newsdesk on KTN Home, but we'll be back with more on KTN News.